drug dealers, murderers, child predators, human traffickers, fraudsters, and savage criminals. Why wouldn't you want them removed? The reason is because these are insurrectionists that are doing this work. And, you know, they're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, you know, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly. I felt horribly when I was told that the young woman who was had the tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. Everybody would say, ICE would say the same thing. But when I learned her parents and her father in particular I hope he still is, but I don't know, was a tremendous Trump fan. He was all for Trump, loved Trump. And, you know, it's terrible. I was told that by a lot of people. They said, oh, he loves you. He was I hope he still feels that way. I don't know. It's a hard situation. But her father was a tremendous, and parents were tremendous Trump fans. It's so sad. It just happens. It's terrible. Halted all refugee admissions to the United States, including from Somalia, which is a terrible, terrible place, another dangerous place. And we also stopped the pirates because they get the same treatment as the drug boats. So in Somalia, the Somalians, you know what they're good at? That's about the only thing they're good at is they're good at pirating ships at sea, big ships. So you have a huge oil tanker with millions of gallons, millions of barrels of oil. And if it gets hit by a big weapon, the whole thing blows up. And they don't want to fight, because if they do, they're told by their insurance companies, do not hand over the ship. And they're not allowed to have any guns on the ship. They're literally, you have these massive ships being taken over by a Somalian small boat with a big weapon. Because if they hit the side of the ship can blow up to, I mean, you talk about a blow up. Bad, we've seen some bad things happen. And the insurance companies, some of these ships cost more than $1 billion to build. And the insurance companies say, look, we'd rather give them money than take a chance on $1 billion insurance policy. But they don't have to worry about it, because we hit them the same way we hit the people with the drugs in their boat. They don't know what the hell happened. But all of a sudden, there are no pirates at sea. Do you notice? We haven't had a boat taken in a little while. Came out of Somalia, really corrupt place. It's not a country. They don't have government. They don't have anything. I always hate to see this. Ilhan Omar, she comes from Somalia, a backward country, probably the worst country. They say it's the worst country in the world, if it's a country. I don't even think it's a country. There's no organization, no anything. They don't have police. They don't have military. They don't have anything. They just have people running around killing each other and trying to pirate ships. But she'll come here, comes, and then she wants to tell us how to run our country. The Constitution says that I am entitled to this. I can't stand her. Terminated all taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens and kicked 275,000 illegals off of Social Security. They were illegally getting Social Security. 275,000 people. I'm telling you, it's not that this is pleasurable, but if I were an elected president, this country was going to be destroyed quickly, very quickly. I think within a year, if you had Kamala or a Joe type. I mean, Joe was a disaster, but if you had Kamala, he was the replacement. I was up by like 25 points on Joe, and they said, hey, let's get somebody else. This never happened. Well, I had so many firsts. You're leading somebody by a lot, and they say, oh, let's take him out, let's put somebody. That's like I said to Dana White the other night. I said, you know, Dana, it's like you have a fighter, two fighters, one guy is winning by a lot. And they say, oh, let's take this guy out, let's put a new fighter in the ring with him. That's what happened to me. I was doing great with Biden. The whole campaign was against Biden. All the money was spent against Biden, and all of a sudden I got Kamala. Everyone said, who the hell is she? But that didn't work out too well for them, but never happened before. We are about lots of firsts. Designated English as the official language of the United States of America. We did that very powerfully. And while we're at it, we also took the Gulf of Mexico, and now it's the Gulf of America. Because we have 92% of the shoreline. It always bothered me. I'd say, you know, we have most of the shoreline. Mexico has a small percentage, talks about 8%. We have 92%. And I said, why is it the Gulf of Mexico? It should be the Gulf of America. I was going to call it the Gulf of Trump, but I thought that I would be killed if I did that. I wanted to do it. I wanted to. My people work so hard. Sir, I don't think it'll look too good. I'm telling you, it's a good thing. And it'll be hotter than ever, I said. No, but I decided not to do that. I'm joking, you know, when I say that. I was not going to call it the Gulf of Trump. Because tomorrow it'll be, Trump wanted to call it the Gulf of Trump, but he was rebuffed by his people. My people don't rebuff me too much. The Gulf of Trump, that does have a good ring, though. Maybe we could do that. It's not too late. No, we have the Gulf of America now. It's great. Our country is proud for the attack on Venezuela, the attack on the Iran nuclear capability, wiped it out. I mean, first administration, Soleimani, the father of the roadside bomb, al-Baghdadi, the father of ISIS, who was rebuilding ISIS. We wiped them out. Done a great job. Signed an order that will end birthright citizenship for children of illegal migrants. You know, that case is in court right now. That case was meant for the children of slaves. All you have to do is look at the years. Look at the years where the cases were filed and where the decisions were made. They were right at the end of the Civil War. They're trying to say that, you know, in China's making a big business out of that. They come to the country, they have a child, they're American citizen, they get all the benefits. It had nothing to do with that. That was for the children of slaves. And I hope the Supreme Court so rules. Designated fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. It is. We lost, I believe, 300,000 people this year. 300,000 people. That's like filling up one of those big football stadiums 5 times. It's not even believable. I mean, you could be in a war and you wouldn't lose that many people. So we designated fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. Conducted numerous successful military strikes against narco-terrorists operating in our hemisphere, including the water strikes. Drugs brought in by ocean. So I told you that we're down by, I mean, close to 100%. It's hard to get somebody to pilot those boats. Very hard. They have to be people that don't watch television, don't read the news. And we just blew up their facility. They had a docking facility where the drugs were stored. And now we have a great relationship with Venezuela. We're getting along fantastically with the leadership in Venezuela, so we wouldn't have to do that. This was done before the attack. But we captured and brought to justice the outlaw dictator of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, who, through drugs, killed millions of people in our country. Tremendous drug dealer. Also sent millions of people into our country, including Tren de Aragua, the worst gang. They say it's the worst gang in the world. They took over parts of Colorado. They just take the apartment building. They just took it away. Just took it away like we're here. They cut the hand off one man because he called the police. Who called the police? I did. You took my apartment from me. Boom. No hand. This is what they sent us. Restoring law and order, new category. D.C. and Memphis, federal task forces deployed massive numbers of federal law enforcement officers and National Guard to restore safety. Crime down in D.C. is almost down to nothing. D.C. was a very, very dangerous place, and I think you probably know better than I do. I have a lot of people in the media thanked me for that, but some of them found it hard to thank me. But, you know, D.C. is now, look how beautiful. D.C. is now, you can walk right from here to a restaurant, right through the center of town. You can be with your child, with your loved one, with your lover. Your lover's not going to be killed anymore, so you can act like a real lover. But you can walk right through the middle of the town, and D.C. is beautiful again, too, you know. You notice we took all the fences down, almost all, the rest are coming down. got the graffiti all off. National Guard's been amazing. You know, we didn't tell them to do that. That's not their job description. But they were picking up garbage and everything. They were great. And I don't know. To me, a town, it looks better when you have military people. These are big, strong guys. The bad guys look at them and they say, "We're not going to mess around." But what they don't know is that we took over 2,000 people out, permanently out of D.C. These were career criminals. But I feel much better seeing those people there. I went in a couple of times and had dinner in D.C. I walked right down the middle of the street. I felt very safe. A year ago, I couldn't have done that. I would have been crazy to have done that. Secret Service wouldn't let me do it. They weren't thrilled anyway, I will tell you. It wasn't like they were thrilled, but we did it, and it was great. But D.C. is a great thing. We have virtually no crime in D.C. anymore. And before we did this move, and we could do the same thing with Chicago. You know, we brought Chicago down 25%, even though we just had a minimal crew there. We brought Wisconsin down. We brought Minnesota down, way down, even though everything's a fight, you know, because they want to keep those people that are lying on the floor. They want to keep those people in Minnesota, but they really don't. I don't think the real people of Minnesota, it's a very corrupt place, and the elections are totally corrupt. I feel I won it all 3 times. Nobody's won that state since Richard Nixon. It's a rigged state. And the Somalians vote as one group, even if they're not citizens, and they vote as one group, and you know, you get 600,000 votes against you. They all ought to get the hell out of here. They're bad for our country. Nationwide achieved the largest reduction in violent crime on record. So this just came out. Nationwide, over the last 11 months, achieved the largest reduction in violent crime on record, including the largest one-year drop in murders ever recorded. Almost 2,000 lives were saved. That's despite the fact that we took in criminals under the leadership of the Democrats and Joe Biden. More motor vehicle theft is down by 100,000 vehicles nationwide. That's another. Nationwide, the motor vehicle theft was out of control, and now it's very much in control. It was down by more than 100,000 vehicles to a record low. Began the process of eliminating cashless bail policies across the nation. You got to get rid of your sanctuary cities, and I hope our people know that we're not going to pay sanctuary cities. We're not going to pay them anymore. They are sanctuary for criminals. They hold criminals. We're not going to pay. They can sue us, and maybe they'll win. But we're not giving money to sanctuary cities anymore as of the beginning of the month. We began the process of eliminating the cashless bail. Well, cashless bail is where it all started. It's a disaster. And then other places. I don't know if it started in New York. I remember it starting in New York. So somebody comes in, murders somebody, and they let him out. No bail, no nothing. Basically, cashless bail means you just get the hell out. And they go outside. We have one case where a guy murders somebody, gets released, and goes out and murders somebody. 2 people in one day. No, we got to get rid of cashless bail. They got to pay, got to have bail. There's a reason for bail. Long tested. Signed an executive order to bring back mental institutions and insane asylums. We're going to have to bring them back. Hate to build those suckers, but you got to get the people off the streets. You know, we used to have, when I was growing up, we had in my area in Queens, I grew up in Queens, we had a place called Creedmoor. Creedmoor, did anybody know that? Creedmoor. It was a big, I said, Mom, why are those bars on the building? I used to play Little League baseball there, a place called Cunningham Park. He was quite the baseball player, you wouldn't believe. But I said to my mother, Mom, she would be there, always there for me. She said, son, you could be a professional baseball player. I said, thanks, Mom. I said, why are those bars on the windows? Big building, big, powerful building. It loomed over the park, actually. She said, well, people that are very sick are in that building. I said, boy, I used to always look at that building and I'd see This big building, big tall building. It loomed over the park. It was sort of, now that I think, it was a pretty unfriendly sight. But I'll never forget, I don't know if it's still there, because they got rid of most of them, you know, the Democrats in New York, they took them down, and the people live on the streets now. That's why you have a lot of the people in California and other places, they live in the streets. They took the mental institutions down. They're expensive. But I'd say, why does that building have those bars? Boy, it wasn't normal. You know, you're used to looking at like a window. But this one, you look at it, all this steel, vicious steel, tiny windows, bars all over the place. Nobody was getting out. It's called a mental institution. That was an insane asylum. Designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, and many others. It is. America is respected again on the world stage. That's another topic. Obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment capability, and Operation Midnight Hammer was one of the most successful anyone's ever seen. CNN fake news. I don't know where they are. CNN. Anybody from CNN here? Fake news. Nobody wants to raise their hand anymore. They used to, oh, here. Now if you're with CNN, you don't raise your hand. But they said, well, maybe it wasn't that successful, which I really was angry because these pilots took their life in their hands. 2 o'clock in the morning with no moon, dead dark, guns shooting at them. They went in with those beautiful B-2s, and every single bomb went down an air shaft and obliterated it. And CNN came out and said, well, maybe it wasn't, by a scam writer who wrote, you know, fake stories, a lot of fake stories on other topics, right? Because when we did it, we said, that's a terrible thing. You know, the pilots came back and they said, we hit everything. They did a great job. Then on top of that, we launched from a submarine about 30 Tomahawks on top of everything else. The place was obliterated. CNN said, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. Turned out it was worse than it was. You know who could tell you that? The Iranians would tell you that. Because if they do anything, they're going to have to start a brand new place. But they did an amazing job. That was like what we did with Venezuela. I mean, nobody's ever seen a military operation like that. Ended 8 unendable wars in 10 months. These were unendable wars. Cambodia and Thailand fighting for years. Kosovo and Serbia. The Congo and Rwanda. Pakistan and India, they were really going at it. 8 planes shot down. They were going to go nuclear, in my opinion. The Prime Minister of Pakistan was here, and he said President Trump saved 10 million people and maybe much more than that. They're both nuclear countries. Israel and Iran. Egypt and Ethiopia were going to fight over a dam, and I got them to stop. I still got to work it out, because they put a dam up in Ethiopia that stops the flow from a little river called the Nile. I always think of the Nile being in Egypt, you know, beautiful Nile with the pyramids, but they put a dam up. You know who paid for the dam? The United States of America. It's the biggest dam, I think, in the world. They put a dam up. I said, how did you let that happen? Why would we have done that? We financed it. This country would. I don't know. Maybe it was a Republican president, but I don't think it was. I think it was a Democrat. But what a terrible thing. So Egypt basically is, you know, they don't have enough water in the Nile. And they use that for a lot of things, including entertainment and travel and tourism and everything. I mean, I don't know. They got a big dam. I got to work that one out now, too. Armenia and Azerbaijan. President Putin told me, I cannot believe you settled that war. I've been trying to settle that war for 10 years. Armenia and Azerbaijan. They were fighting it for many, many years. And I ended up getting the heads of both countries in my office. The beautiful Oval Office, much more beautiful now than it ever was. And one sat on one side, one sat on the other. He said, you know, I've been the head of Azerbaijan for 22 years, and for 22 years I've been killing his people. And the other gentlemen, are both very good guys, said, I've been here for 7 years, and for 7 years I've been killing his people. And they started over there, and within an hour they were next to each other, and by the time we ended, they were hugging each other, and it's been a great peace, you know? Should have gotten the Nobel Prize for each war, but I don't say that. I say millions and millions of people. And don't let anyone tell you that Norway doesn't control the shots, okay? It's in Norway. Norway controls the shots. They'll say, we have nothing to do with it. It's a joke. They've lost such prestige. That's why I have such respect for Maria doing what she did. She said, I don't deserve the Nobel Prize. He does. When she got it, they said, wow, that's amazing. I thought President Trump would get it. President Trump deserves it. He ended up 8 wars. How nice, right? It's a good woman. Got all 20 living hostages returned to their families, and the remains, they all came out. We got the 20 living hostages. We got the 28 hostages. They have 1 left that we think we know where it is. Amazing. Looked like we weren't going to get anywhere near that. Now they've gotten almost. And more importantly, we got many more, hundreds. We got them all. If we didn't do it, you wouldn't have had, most of those people would have been dead. I don't know if that's covered properly, but you know, the 20 is great. They were the last ones. I always said the last 20 are going to be hard, but we got them. We got the last 20, and we got close to 28 of the bodies of the dead. And to those parents, that was just as important as getting their son back alive. They were almost even more intent on they knew their son was dead. They wanted to get the body. I got him back. We just created the Board of Peace, which I think is going to be amazing. I wish the United Nations could do more. I wish we didn't need a Board of Peace, but the United Nations, and you know, with all the wars I settled, the United Nations never helped me on one war. I mean, I guess I'm not blaming them. I didn't call them to help, but I got, you know, the presidents and prime ministers together. We knocked heads. We got along, and they liked me. I liked them. Every single one of them nominated me for a Nobel Prize. Every one of the wars, among many other people, nominated me for a Nobel Prize. But Putin told me, I cannot believe you got this war settled. I've worked on it for 10 years because it's his territory. Rescued 83 American hostages and citizens detained from abroad without paying a lot of money. Paid no money. Apprehended terrorists responsible for the Abbey Gate bombing that claimed the lives of 13 U.S. service members in Afghanistan, the lowest point in the history of our country. That was a Biden disaster. I was getting out, but I was getting out with dignity and strength. We were the boss. Oh, we were the boss. They wouldn't do a thing against us. And this very stupid person got in, and what a shame. They should have left from Bagram, which is the big military base, which has hundreds of acres around it. Should have left from Bagram. Terminated visas of Hamas sympathizers and deported pro-jihad foreign nationals. Got NATO members to agree to raise defense spending to 5% of GDP from 2%, and they paid the 5%, and they didn't pay the 2%. And by the way, I did more for NATO than any other person alive or dead. Nobody's done for NATO. And I think for the most part, they'll tell you that. I think you could ask the Secretary General about that, but he said it a lot. I've done more for NATO than anybody, and I see all this stuff, but NATO has to treat us fairly, too. The big fear I have with NATO is we spend tremendous amounts of money with NATO, and I know we'll come to their rescue, but I just really do question whether or not they'll come to ours. You know, I'm just asking. Just saying, right? You remember during the debate? Just saying. Signed $1 trillion investment in U.S. military. And next year, we hopefully will go to a $1.5 trillion. We're building battleships that are 100 times more powerful than the battleships of World War II, which are the big, beautiful, those big, beautiful things with the guns. I said, what about bringing them out of dry dock? They said, sir, what we're building will blow them away. Think of it. These ships are 100 times more powerful than the battleships that you see on Victory at Sea. Do you ever see Victory at Sea? What a great thing that is to watch. Renamed the Department of Defense into the Department of War, which everyone loves, by the way. Signed landmark critical minerals deals with Australia, Malaysia, Thailand, Ukraine, Japan, and many others. We're going to have so much rare earth. It's actually not that rare. Getting it processed is rare, but there's a lot of rare earth. There's a lot of earth around, I can tell you. withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization, where we were paying hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So we were paying $500 million a year, and China was paying $37 million a year. I said, why aren't we paying the same as China? They said, well, nobody asked. I said, China's got 1.4 billion people. We have 350 million, probably, with all the illegals, you know. China probably knows more accurately. But we have much smaller in terms of the number of people. We have a much more powerful military, but we have much smaller. I rebuilt the military during my first term, by the way. And while they gave away a lot to Afghanistan, the Taliban, which was just horrible seeing them, every year seeing them do that military down some dirty street is a disgrace. But while Biden gave a lot of it away, it's a tiny fraction compared to what we did. I rebuilt the military, and now we're continuing to build it. And bigger and better, we need it, peace through strength. But we withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. So I remember we were paying $500 million, they were paying 37 or 39 million. And I said, how come? So I withdrew, and they called, we'll give you the same deal that they had. I said, well, it should be less than that, because if they're at 37 and you have 3 times, 4 times the number of people, even maybe 5 times, I don't know. So it should be less, but I didn't want to chisel around. And I thought about it. So I could have taken 500 million to 37, and everybody knew it. I chose not to do it because it was actually very popular when I got out, because they were terrible. And so I chose not to take that deal. First thing Biden did is go back into it. You know what he paid? More than 500 million. So I actually called them. I said, you know, you can buy it for less. You can make a deal at 37. There's no reason to pay 500. They didn't care. They paid more than 500. Did you know that? They paid more than 500 million. I made a deal at 37. I could have had 37. They were public about it. We'll give you the same deal that China has for 37. And they paid $500 million. That's the way you ruin a country. And it's the same attitude that, you know, you have on everything else with these people. They were terrible. The anti-American UN Human Rights Council we ended. The UN Relief and Works Agency we ended. And the fake Paris Climate Accord, which was a ripoff of America, where we had to pay $1 trillion and they were paying nothing. China didn't kick in until 2035. We kicked in immediately. We were supposed to pay $1 trillion. Russia went to a standard of 1991, which was a dirtier standard. But we had to pay top dollar. So I terminated that. Another wreck. We ended the woke lunacy and restored common sense, abolished all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI policies throughout the federal government and the private sector. They're gone, everybody. They're gone. Terrible. Terminated the Green New Scam and ended the insane electric vehicle mandate. I love electric vehicles. That caused me a little problem with a man named Elon. But he understands, and he's a good guy. We get along, but I said, Elon, we can't have all electric cars. We just can't do it. I like the electric cars. I like his car. But in particular, I like his car. But we can't do that because some people don't want an electric car by 2030. And to build the power stations all over the country would have cost $4 trillion. $4 trillion. That's more than any country has. If you got China, the United States, and everyone, you couldn't do it. And it would have taken years. And yet they were supposed to be switching over electric vehicle mandate. Some people don't like electric cars. Some people want hybrids. Some people want regular gasoline-powered cars. We have more gasoline than anybody. And now with Venezuela, we have 62% of the market when you include Venezuela. So I ended the Green New Scam, and I ended the insane electric vehicle mandate. Now you can buy a gasoline-powered car, a hybrid, and you can buy a electric vehicle. I mean, if you think, if you want electric, you can buy it. Make a good deal on them right now because they made a lot of them. Permanently stopped Joe Biden's ridiculous CAFE standards. That's having to do with the environment, so ridiculous. Canceled the EPA's absurd, totally absurd tailpipe emission standard, which made you spend hundreds of thousands. It made for hundreds of thousands of cars. The numbers, the cost numbers were incredible that the consumer has to pay. Imposed 25% tariff on all foreign automobiles and 100% tariff on Chinese cars, which don't come into the country because of tariffs. Only because of tariffs. We didn't have tariffs, you wouldn't have any car. We have now more car factories being built in the United States than ever before because of tariffs. If they take those tariffs away, China will eat our lunch. They'll take all of our car business. Now, there's another way of doing it, but it's more cumbersome, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to scare you, but it's much more cumbersome, not as good for national security as this. We have a perfect system right now. We're making a fortune. We've never been stronger, and I hope the Supreme Court does the right thing for our country, because if they don't, it's such a problem. It's just so, it would be so sad. We're doing so well because of tariffs. And the people that are heading up the lawsuit, like there's a guy named Leonard Leo, who's bad guy, and people that are very China-oriented and foreign car-oriented and foreign business-oriented, but in particular China, they're suing to get rid of tariffs because they don't want tariffs, like Coke. Coke has businesses outside of the United States. If you have them outside, you don't want tariffs. But because of tariffs, they treat us well. Without tariffs, they would treat us very badly. As you saw for many years, they respect us more now than they ever have respected us, by a lot. And revoked the California emissions waiver to stop San Francisco communists from regulating the automobile industry and destroying automobiles and the industry in the nation. I was with Bill Ford of Ford Motors. I was with all the people at General Motors the other day, and they are making more money and building more cars than they are doing so good. All because of tariffs and what I've done. And they're building their plants all in the United States. Reopened ANWR for drilling. That's a big deal. Launched a massive Alaskan pipeline project to export natural gas to Asia. We made a deal with South Korea and with Japan that gives us money, the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. Signed executive orders to end Biden's war on coal and I say clean, beautiful coal. I never say the word coal. It has to be preceded by the words clean, beautiful coal. And put miners back to work. The miners love Trump. I think I got 100% of their vote. We banned transgenders from the military. We don't want transgender in the military. Ordered reinstatement of patriots expelled from our military with full back pay. So we had some people that were terminated, and they're coming back into our military. Fired the woke boards of visitors at our military service academies. The boards of visitors were run by radical left, maybe communists, maybe not, but they were still heavily radical left, and they were bad for us. Signed an executive order to remove anti-American propaganda from federal museums and national parks. Required the federal employees to return to work in person or be fired. We don't want them sitting in their home or in their bed working. We want them in an office that we're paying for in Washington, D.C. or wherever it may be. And we've largely taken care of that mess. That was crazy. I guarantee you they're out on the ball fields. I guarantee you they're out playing golf. And you can't run a country or a company that way. I think it's happening even so with countries and companies. But we had so many of our federal workers, they wouldn't come into work. Signed an order banning all government censorship and restoring free speech. Made it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders. This was not a tough one. Two genders. Can anybody guess what they are? Male and female. I think the Democrats know that too, but they refuse to admit it. Ban the use of puberty blockers, hormone injections, and other chemical and surgical mutilation of children. Can you imagine saying this 15 years ago? That we banned the use of puberty blockers, hormone injections, and other chemical and surgical mutilation of our children. You know, when I say it, Do I have to say that? I actually asked my people today, yes, sir, because people, it's where the country went. Banned men from playing in women's sports. Big Supreme Court case on that. I mean, I can't believe it. Some of the justices were fighting hard for men to be able to play in women's sports. A couple of them. I can't imagine it, but I think anybody that rules that way should lose a lot of credibility. But we banned men from playing in women's sports. All you have to do is look at the records. Look at weightlifting records. Look at swimming records. Look at track and field. It's not fair. It's very demeaning to women. Banned transgender ideology and critical race theory from our schools. Secured unprecedented settlements with Brown University, Columbia University, and many other colleges, including the University of Pennsylvania, where I went, the great old Wharton School of Finance. To restore fairness and merit, we're working with Harvard right now. They've been very anti-Semitic. Terrible what they've done. And we'll see what happens. I hear we have a deal, but who the hell knows with them? They have a lawyer that wants to show how hot he is. Ended taxpayer-funded student loan forgiveness for radical left and anti-American activists. Can you believe it? Began the process of abolishing the Federal Department of Education and returning education back to the states. And Linda McMahon is doing a fantastic job. Ended Joe Biden's weaponization of our government and removed his hand-picked radical left Marxist prosecutors from the Department of Justice, like deranged Jack Smith. He's a sick son of a bitch. They gave me the worst of the worst. And here I am. How did that happen? How did that happen? He's a sick guy, and Letitia James is sick, and Alvin Bragg is sick. They're sick people. And others. Fani, you can't call Fanny. She doesn't like it. She wants to be called Fani. Fani Willis. I won. Can you imagine putting somebody through that? And then if I suggest that somebody may be guilty of a terrible crime, oh, he's weaponizing government. Trump is weaponizing government. It's terrible. Can you imagine? They say to me about weaponize, I don't weaponize anything. But what they did to me, nobody ever went through what I went through. And here I am in a place called the White House. It's a beautiful place. Who would have thought, right? Signed legislation to cut all taxpayer funding to woke and biased NPR and PBS. And they're sort of gone now, I guess. I heard they closed up. They were terrible. They were so unfair. They were so terrible. Officially reinstated Columbus Day. I like the name Columbus Day. The Italian people are very happy about it. Remember, when you go to the voting booths, I reinstated Columbus Day. That was an easy one. Christopher Columbus. Cut Social Security wait times by 50%, serve 65% more Social Security recipients by phone, and are on track to doubling the service and performance compared to the Biden administration. We're 2.5 to 3 times better and faster. Slash VA claims backlog to the lowest number ever recorded. Created Trump accounts starting with $1,000 for every newborn baby. This is something that's become so popular. And I give Mr. and Mrs. Michael Dell Computer, who put in $6.25 billion, started with nothing. And he actually invested all that money to give to kids so that when they grow up, they have an account that might be worth a lot of money. It'll be riding with the markets. And, you know, they can, at 20 years old, 21 years old, they could have $100,000. They could have a lot of money. That's going to be amazing. But I give a lot of credit to Mr. and Mrs. Michael Dell. Signed AI executive order to ensure the United States dominates the future of artificial intelligence. So we're leading China. We're leading the whole world. We're producing more electricity than we ever have because I'm allowing every one of those plants to build their own electric facility. We're giving them very, very fast approvals, unlike Los Angeles with the fire. So the federal government, I want to give a lot of credit to Lee Zeldin. The hardest approval for the 20,000 houses or more that burned down in Los Angeles because they didn't have the water. They didn't allow the water to come down from the Pacific Northwest. They routed the water into the Pacific Ocean. So we had no water there. No, he had. I would say open up the water. Open it up to the governor, to the mayor. They didn't want to do it. They wanted to protect a tiny little fish that's, I said, how can you have a fish when you don't have any water? It was just an excuse, I guess. But it's amazing. We took 20,000 houses, and Lee Zeldin, the toughest permit is from the federal government. Within 2 weeks, every single permit was given to the people to build their houses. Then you have the incompetent mayor of Los Angeles. He's neutral, who decided to go to Africa during the fire. So you have this incompetent mayor, and I had it out with her the night when I got, right after the fire, I went there. She said, we're working on it so that we can have everybody starting to build within 2 or 3 years. Remember that? I said, you mean 2 or 3 days? No, I mean 2 or 3 years. And the place went crazy. Well, they still haven't gotten their permits. But every federal permit, every single one has been given a year ago. And Lee Zeldin has done a great job. And he's done a great job in the approval of all these big plants and factories and all of the electricity that they're creating for themselves. I said to Zuckerberg, I said to all of them, I said to Jeff Bezos, I said to everybody. Mark Zuckerberg couldn't believe it. He said, where are we going to get all the electricity? Because you need double the electricity that the country currently makes just to fire up those big plants. I said, well, nobody can do that. So what we're going to do is let you make your own electricity. Nobody believed it. And I said, we're going to get you fast permits. So we get them within 2 weeks. And they're coming up with some of the most incredible electric plants you've ever seen. So each one of those massive buildings, AI or otherwise, is building their own electricity. They're building their own plant. And it's incredible. Many of them are under construction already. They're going to have, we're leading AI, and we're leading China by a lot. Established a MAHA presidential commission, banned many artificial food dyes, as you know, issued new vaccine recommendations, and created new real food pyramid. And Bobby and Dr. Oz have been incredible. Provided $12 billion in aid for American farmers. Just gave them $12 billion in aid because they got screwed by other nations. And the number of drug dealers have fallen every single month since I took office. Drug dealers are way down in the United States. And that's a small version of what's sitting right there. That's just a small version. We took a country that was dead, and it's the hottest country in the world right now, and that's after 1 year. So let's go. That's a lot of people. Go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I have 2 questions for you. One, do you want your Board of Peace to replace the UN?
Well, it might. I mean, the UN just hasn't been very helpful. I'm a big fan of the UN potential, but it has never lived up to its potential. The UN should have settled every one of the wars that I settled. I never went to them. I never even thought to go to them. They should be able to settle those wars. They don't. I believe you got to let the UN continue because the potential is so great.
And I wonder, Mr. President, you invited Lula from Brazil to be part of the Board of Peace.
I did.
What role do you expect him to play, especially
a big role.
with
I like
Venezuela?
Yeah,
and another one, because the
Are you from Brazil?
Yes. The EU and Mercosur just signed a trade agreement this weekend, which is going to be the biggest trade zone, free zone in the world. Right. At the moment, you are talking a lot about tariffs. What is your reaction to that? So 2 questions, Lula.
Well, look, I just think this. I think we have trade like we've never had before. We're doing better in trade than we ever have before. We're not being ripped off by every country in the world like we were before. We're doing numbers that nobody's ever thought possible. We're the richest we ever were. It's because of tariffs and the proper use of tariffs. And we're also the most secure. as an example, Iceland, without tariffs, they wouldn't even be talking to us about it. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to work out quite well. Yeah, right behind.
Thank you, Mr. President. How would you characterize your relationship with Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer right now? And have you spoken to them since your Truth Social post last
No, I
night?
haven't, but I think I get along very well with them. I mean, they always treat me well. They get a little bit rough when they're, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems. They have two problems, immigration and energy. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to go back like UK has an unbelievable asset called the North Sea. Norway uses it, makes a fortune. They have a better section of it, and they don't do it. They could straighten out their countries, and it would be good. But I get along very well with them.
You told Norway's prime minister.
Are you from Norway?
No.
You look like you would be from Norway. She looks like she's from Norway. Go ahead.
You told Norway's prime minister that you not winning the Nobel Peace Prize made you feel less obligated to think purely of peace.
Well, I lost a lot of respect for Norway. And I believe very strongly that Norway controls the Nobel Prize. But you have to understand, I settled 8 wars. I've had every one of those wars, every participant wrote, I didn't ask them to do it. They sent in strong they make recommendations for that. But I settled 8 wars. No president's probably ever settled 1 war. I don't know, think of it. I did 8. The reason I do it is because it's easy for me to do. And I didn't do it for a Nobel Prize. I did it because I'm saving a lot of lives. I'm trying to settle the final one. I'm trying to do Russia-Ukraine. And when Russia's ready, Ukraine's not. When Ukraine's ready, Russia's not. But they're losing 25,000 people a month on average. And I'm trying to get that one done. But no, I feel that Norway has tremendous control over who gets the Nobel Prize, despite what they say.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
Mr. President, Kevin Hassett has said that those $2,000 tariff rebate checks would be up to Congress to decide whether or not to disperse that. Do you agree with Kevin Hassett on that, or do you think you can do that unilaterally?
No, I don't think we would have to go the Congress route, but we'll find out. The reason we're even talking about it is that we have so much money coming in from tariffs that we'll be able to issue at least a $2,000 dividend and also pay down debt for the country. But we'd do a $2,000 dividend to the people of our country. Would probably set a limit of, income limit where it made sense. But we will be able to make a very substantial dividend to the people of our country. I believe we can do that without Congress.
Last night on Truth Social, you said that the British plan to hand the base at Diego Garcia over to Mauritius and then rent it back was an act of great stupidity. Previously, you backed that deal. Is it now your position that the deal should not go ahead? I
think that they, when they originally were going to do it, they were talking about doing some concept of ownership. But now they're looking to essentially just do a lease and sell it. And I'm against that. It's a reasonably nothing like Greenland, but it's a reasonably important area of the globe. Not to anywhere near Greenland, but I think they should keep it. I don't know why they're doing it. Do they need money?
Mr. President, with your support to the Syrian government, most probably you avoided another civil war and a bloodshed in Syria, especially after the fall of the regime.
I did a good job.
And, the Syrian government, the last 2 weeks, had to use some force to implement its force on specific areas. And
well,
with
to keep the prisoners, the terrorist prisoners, which are some of the worst in the world, at bay. So they were able to keep that. He's working very hard. The president of Syria is working very, very hard. Strong guy, tough guy, pretty rough resume. But you're not going to put a choir boy in there and get the job done. I spoke with him yesterday because we were talking about the prisons and, what was going on. We have some of the worst terrorists in the world in those prisons, and he's watching them.
Syria.
Mr.
Go ahead.
President, Gavin Newsom is going to be at Davos if he's not already there. You're probably going to run into him. I presume that this is for him to raise his platform for 2028, but what do you anticipate his foreign policy platform is going to be?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that he's going to be the nominee. I know this. I had a very good relationship with Gavin Newsom when we were, in office together. I was president. He was the governor of California. We had he would talk about it often, and somewhere we just went astray. I just hate the way California is being run. We actually have people leaving. It's never happened before, but I hate the way it's being run. He and I had a very good relationship, really close to the word exceptional, but now we seem not to.
Thank you, President Trump. President Trump, you spoke earlier.
Mr. President, you've been hearing from allies.
Thank you so much, President Trump. Kara Castanova from Lindell TV, and you spoke earlier about the 2020 election. Now that Maduro is in U.S. custody and he was criminally charged, has any more information emerged that you could share with us regarding Venezuelan election software and Venezuelan ties to tampering with the 2020 election? And would you consider speaking to Maduro personally in prison in New York to get some answers on Venezuela's involvement with the 2020 election?
No, I don't think I would be doing that. I think my lawyers would be very unhappy if I did that. Yeah, they've learned some things. Please.
What happens to the tariff threat to Greenland if the Supreme Court comes out and rules against you on the tariffs? And
well, I'll have to use something else. I mean,
are
look.
you willing to use force?
Take a look at the word license. Take a look at other things. I mean, we have other alternatives. But what we're doing now is the best, the strongest, the fastest, the easiest, the least complicated.
Sir, if you move ahead with the Greenland-related tariffs on Europe, you secured almost $1 trillion of commitments from them to invest in the United States. Does that go put out the window if that happens?
I doubt it. Look, they need that agreement very badly with us. They really do. They fought very hard to get it. So I doubt that, but we'll see what happens. We have a lot of meetings scheduled on Greenland. I'm leaving tonight, as you know, for Davos. And we have a lot of meetings scheduled on Greenland. And I think things are going to work out pretty well, actually.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will you still go to Paris for the G7 emergency meeting?